Today we're working on Chapter 2 Test Review. The first problem is we need to name a segment that is skew to line BC, or segment BC. So skew means it cannot be parallel or perpendicular, but and it cannot intersect. So if we look at BC, that is here. So a parallel would be AD, perpendicular would be EC, so any other segment would be appropriate here. So one segment could be AB. Or, oops, never mind, one segment could be, let's see, CD or ED would be probably the best one, because it doesn't intersect and it's not parallel. So ED would be a segment skew to BC. And then on the same figure, we're identifying the intersection of plane ABD and plane CDE. And the intersection of two planes is a line, so we're looking for that. ABD and CDE. So ABD is here. CDE is here. So if we are naming the place that it intersects, it would have to be CD. Next, we're identifying each pair of angles as either alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or consecutive interior. So here's our figure. We're asked if angle 5 and angle 13, what are they? So angle 5 and 13 are here. They are on the same side of the line, and one is inside these two lines, and one is outside, so that would have to be corresponding. Then we have angle 7 and angle 12. That is this one and this one. And these are both in between lines A and B, so they're inside, they're interior. One is on one side of the line and one is on the other, so that would have to be alternate interior. And then we have an angle 9 and angle 16. Angle 9 and angle 16. Those, again, are on alternate sides of the same line, but they are both outside lines D and E, so they would be alternate exterior. Now, using the same figure, it says angle 6 is 89, so we're supposed to find angle 10. So angle 6 is here. That's 89 degrees. And then angle 10 is here, so 6 and 10 are consecutive, So consecutive angles add up to 180. So if we have 180 minus 89, that will give us angle 10. So that's going to give us 91. And then, again, using the same figure, it gives us angle 8 is 4x plus 10, angle 12 is 7x minus 17. So let's see what they relate to be. Angle 8 and 12. And angle 8 and 12 are also consecutive interior. So we will say that they need to add up to be 180. So that means 4x plus 10 plus 7x minus 17 has to equal 180, which will help us solve for x. And then angle 11, it says, is 3y. And angle 11 and 12 are also supplementary or equal to 180. So once we solve for x, we're going to add angles 12 and 11 and put them equal to 180. So first we're solving for x. So 11x equals 187. We're going to divide by 11, which gives us 17. And then we need to find y, so we need to take 17 and plug it in for angle 12, add that to angle 11, and put it equal to 180 again. So 7 times 17 minus 17 plus 3y equals 180. So I'm solving for y. And I get y equals 26. And then x was 17. So those are my two answers. Next, we're determining the slope for the next couple of problems. So slope, you would subtract the y coordinates, put that as the numerator, and then subtract the x coordinates. So you have 4 over negative 10, and then simplify if possible. So 2 over negative 5. Again, we're finding slope. So subtract the y coordinates over the x coordinates. We get negative 1 over negative 7. That simplifies to positive 1/7. And finally, again, subtracting the y's over the x's. So I get 1 over negative 3. Here we're supposed to determine whether the two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So again, we're finding slope of each line and testing to see whether they have the same slope, which would be parallel, whether they have opposite signs and reciprocal slopes, which would be perpendicular, or they have neither of these. So let me find the slope of BT. So 12 minus negative 4 over 5 minus 1 would be 16 over 4, or 4. So we're going to compare that to the slope for MV. And that's going to be 1 over negative 4. So they are opposite signs and they're reciprocals, so these would be perpendicular. Next, we're going to do the same thing. Find the slope of BT first. Oops. And then the slope of MV. And they actually simplified to be the same, so these would be parallel. And then one more. So positive 2, we're comparing to MV. And again, we have opposite signs and reciprocals, so these would be perpendicular. Now we're looking to write an equation here, and it needs to represent the total cost. So if we have a job hotline service that charges $25 plus a 4% commission, the percent commission is going to be your rate. The $25 is a flat fee. So if we write an equation in slope-intercept form, we would need to put y equals our rate as a decimal times x plus our flat fee, which represents the y-intercept. So this would be our equation, and the cost, we would put in $1,500 for y and solve. Oops. So I'm solving for y. We have 1,500 minus 25 is 1,475 equals 0.04x. So we divide by 0.04. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely messed this up. Hold on. I read the question wrong. Sorry, the equation is still correct, but you have x, which is C in this case, represents the commission or what the client earned. So that should be where 1,500 goes, not in for the total cost. So we're going to plug that into x. Which gives us 85. Now we need to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So if they give us the slope and the y-intercept, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, so we put in 7, and then we put in -8 for your y-intercept, so it's plus -8. So this would be your equation. Next, again, we're finding the equation in slope-intercept form. So we're given the slope, we can plug that in, but then we need to find our b value. So we're going to use the point, plug it in, y coordinate for y, x coordinate for x, and we're solving for b. So I get -8. And if I put that all together, I have y equals 4x minus 8, or plus -8. Next, I have 2 points given to me, so if it's the x-intercept, the point is -5, 0. If it's the y-intercept, the point is 0, 2. So I'm going to use those points to find the slope. Which is positive 2/5, and then I'm given my y-intercept, which is my b value, so I'm going to plug that in for b. And that would be my equation. Next, we're doing another word problem, but this is asking for, or it's talking about, rate of change. So we have Tanya joined Alphaville Motors as a car salesperson in 1998. The number of cars she sold increased at an average rate of 25 cars per year, so that's our slope between 1998 and 2001. And then it says in 2001 she sold a total of 237 cars. That would be our ordered pair that we're going to plug in to our equation to find our b value. So if it's 2001, that is going to be 3 years after 1998, so we would represent that as 3, and that's our x value because it's independent, and then we have 237 as our y. So we solve for b. We get 162, so our equation is y equals 25x plus 162. Now it asks us to solve to find out how many cars she will sell in 2007. So if we use the same idea as before, 1998 to 2007 is 9. So that's going to go in for y, and we're going to find x. Actually, let me give you an easier way of doing this. If we just use the rate as 25 cars, and we think about 6 years in between 2001 to 2007, so she sold 237 cars in 2001, and then if we multiply that by the rate, 6 times 25, we get 150. So we're going to add 150 plus 237 to get our answer. And that would be actually a lot easier than the last method. So 387 would be your answer. Now we're looking to see if we could state the postulate or theorem that justifies whether the lines are parallel or not. So we're given this diagram. We're asked about QSR and angle SUT. So QSR is going to be here, and SUT is going to be here. So that is these two, and they're on the same side of the line, and one is inside and one is outside these two lines. So that would be corresponding, which means they have to add up to 180. But we just need to name them, so it's the corresponding angles postulate, but it's the converse because we're proving the lines are parallel. So converse of. Now we look at angles 1 and 2. Those are labeled here, so we have angle 1 and angle 2. Those are on opposite sides of the line, and they are both inside these two lines, P and Q. So those would be alternate interior, which means they are congruent, but we would use the converse of alternate interior angles theorem. And I don't have my references handy, so these could also be written as the numbers that they are, or you could write out the words. And then finally we have RTU and TUS. Without even looking at the diagram, we can say that these are going to have to be consecutive interior. So we're going to do the converse, because they're equal to 180, of the consecutive interior angles theorem. Now we're asked to find the value of x, so that P is parallel to Q. So that means we have two consecutive interior angles. Those need to add up to be 180. So we have 12x plus 11 plus 4x plus 1 equals 180, and we solve for x that way. So x would be 10.5. Next, we're asked to find the distance between parallel lines. We're going to do this 1 time, 2 times, and then we're going to do one where we have the point distance from the point to the line. So we have 3 examples like this. So I would strongly suggest following the step-by-step instructions to find the distance and having those available for the test. So we're going to take this step by step. Step 1 would be to find the perpendicular slope to either one of these, which would be the opposite reciprocal, so it would be negative 1/3. And then we're going to use one of the y-intercepts, it doesn't matter which one. And now we need to solve, so we're going to put this equation equal to the other equation that we did not use its y-intercept, and we're going to solve. So we get x equals 3, and then I'm going to plug that into either equation that I used here. So if I plug that into 3x minus 11, I would have 3 times 3 is 9 minus 11. So y would be negative 2. So this is the point that I'm going to use along with the y-intercept that I used for my perpendicular equation to plug into the distance formula. So I have 3, negative 2, and 0, negative 1. The distance formula, you subtract the x's, square them, add that to subtract the y's, square it. So I have 3 squared plus negative 1 squared, or 9 plus 1. And we can write that as the square root of 10, or we can round that to the nearest tenth and write it as a decimal. We're going to do the same thing again here. So we have the opposite reciprocal as our slope, which would be positive 1/5 x. And I'm going to use the y-intercept of either one. Since this one, the y-intercept is 0, I'm going to use the other y-intercept. And I put the one that I did not use the y-intercept for, that equation, equal to this one to solve. And I should get x equals negative 5, and I want to plug that into either one that I used, which we could just use the negative 5x one, and we get y equals 25. So we're going to take this point with the y-intercept of the perpendicular equation, which was 0, 26. We're going to plug that into the distance formula. So negative 5 minus 0 squared plus 25 minus 26 squared, which is negative 5 squared plus negative 1 squared, which would be 25 plus 1, or 26. So the distance would be the square root of 26. And now we're going to do one more where we have to find the distance between the point and the line. And this is another set of 4 steps that you would like to that you should follow in this lesson, and also write them down for your notes. So since they don't give us an equation for line L, we need to find the equation for line L. So we need to find 2 points on it, which would be 0, negative 3, and negative 1, negative 2. So my slope is negative 1 x, and my y-intercept was negative 3, so this is my equation for line L. Then I need to find my equation for line Q, or the line with the Q point on it. So I need to use a perpendicular slope to 1, which would be, or negative 1, which would be 1. And then I need to find the new y-intercept for the line with Q on it by using the point Q, which was 2, 3. So B would be 1. So my two equations are y equals negative 1x minus 3 and y equals x plus 1. We're going to put those equal to each other to solve. So x would be negative 2. We could plug that into either equation to find y. So y would be negative 1. So my point is negative 2, negative 1. And my other point is what I used for Q, 2, 3. And those are the 2 points I plug into the distance formula. And I get the square root of 32. And that concludes the Chapter 2 test review.